Hello friends, in this video we are going to cover output fixing parser. So all the parsers that we have seen in the previous video, they just tell LM to generate the output in a particular format. Either it's a pedantic parser, JSON parser or any other parser. All of them are producing output in a particular format. But what happens if an LM does not generate a response in that particular format? For example, let's say a JSON output parser asks the LLM to return a JSON, but LLM does some mistake. Maybe the JSON format is wrong, or it returns an answer in a text format or in some other format. In that case, all the other parsers that we have seen in the previous video, they will fail. They will throw an exception and the program will stop. So to deal with that, we have two different types of parsers, which is output fixing parser and retry parser. And in this video, we will be covering output fixing parser. Output fixing parser is a parser that automatically repairs malformed LLM output when parsing fails. So output fixing parser works with other parsers, and in case parsing fails with the other parser, output fixing parser tries to repair that output. So this is extremely useful because LLM frequently generates invalid JSON, missing commas, incorrect field types, malformed structures, partially broken outputs. So any of these cases can be common within LLM if the LLM is not properly trained, or it's hallucinating, or due to various other reasons, LLM can do any of these things. In that case, we need a parser like output fixing parser to do a retry and fix the output generated by the LLM. So the problem it solves is this parser detects failure, calls LLM again and fixes the output. So let's see how this internally works. So let's see the initial output generated by your LLM is like this. Let's assume we are asking LLM to generate a small JSON and the output given by LLM is like this. So as you can see here, a comma is missing because this is not a correct JSON. So let's assume we are using JSON output parser along with output fixing parser. In that case, when the LLM will generate this output will be passed to JSON output parser first. Hence the parsing will fail. JSON output parser will return an error response, an exception. So the original parser will fail, which is JSON output parser, and throws a validation error or JSON decode error. Then output fixing parser will capture that error and it will know that this has an original bad output and parsing instructions and parser's error message. It will gather all this information. Then it will create a prompt and it will send that prompt to LLM saying the output that you have returned is invalid, and it will ask LLM to fix it according to the schema that is needed by the original parser. Then the LLM will do the processing and it will return a correct output format, and hence the things will go on. So let's see a small example here without use of LLM first. So here I am taking a base model. So this is like the same thing we have seen in the pedantic parser. I am creating a class, pedantic class, using the base model, and here I am expecting a name, quantity and a price. Then I have an invoice which has an invoice number, vendor, list of items and total. Now I am initially using pedantic output parser. So please note that this output fixing parser works with other parsers to fix the output. It doesn't have its own prompt or something like that we have seen in the previous parsers. It doesn't modify your initial prompt. So pedantic output parser will make sure that output will be written in this particular format only. But if LLM does a mistake, for example, instead of a list it returns a text here, or instead of a float it returns a string here, in that case pedantic output parser will fail and it will return an exception. So we are wrapping pedantic output parser inside output fixing parser like this, along with the LLM that we want to use when fixing this output. So here you can choose different LLMs in the chain as well as here. So you can do something like this. By initial prompt, when you are creating your chain with the pedantic output parser for initial response, you can choose a different LLM, and here as well. So output fixing parser takes a base parser for which it needs to fix the output, and the LLM you want to use it to fix that output. So here I have not created a chain. I'm just assuming, let's say by initial prompt LLM returned you this output for this particular classes. So as you can see, if you will parse this JSON for this class, this will fail because here we are missing a comma at the total. So we are missing a comma here, and we have a wrong type quantity 2. So here, as you can see, quantity is string 2, but the quantity needed is integer. So this schema will fail. So let's say if we pass this bad output to output fixing parser that we have created here by using base parser and an LLM, and we invoke it, then you can see it will just fix up the whole JSON. So now, as you can see, the invoice number is this, vendor is this, items are these, and quantity is fixed like a integer 2 instead of a string 2. So how it's behaving? So this is the response we have assumed that is written by the LLM initially in the first prompt. Then this response is is passed to pedantic output parser, which fails it with an exception. And as the base parser, which is pedantic output parser, is inside output fixing parser, this is cached by output fixing parser. Then output fixing parser generates a prompt with everything, with the response as well as the format needed by the base parser, and it sends that prompt to that LLM, and it asks the LLM to fix the output according to the format given in the prompt. Once the LLM fixes the output, it returns you the proper output in the response in the same format as it was expected from the base parser. This is how output fixing parser works. So let's see a real example where you want to use it along with the prompt. So here we have created another class, pedantic class with incident report, and we are creating a base parser like the above example in pedantic output parser. Here we are passing our pedantic object as incident report. Then, as in the above example, we are wrapping this around output fixing parser along with the LLM we want to use to fix the particular output. Now this is our initial prompt, chat prompt template prompt, where we are passing the similar prompt as we have seen in the previous videos with you are a senior site reliability engineer, and the incident below, and extract severity, service, and cause. Here we are passing the similar format instructions, which is base parser get format instructions, not the output fixing parser format instructions. So as you can see, please note in the initial prompt, the instructions that we are passing to LLM to generate the response is from base parser, not the final parser, which is outrapped by output fixing parser. Because we want LLM to be return the response based on the format provided by your initial parser. In case the response fails, in case the parsing fails, then only output fixing parser will come into the picture. Otherwise, the steps in the output fixing parser will never happen. Then it's the same thing. We have the prompt here. Then we are invoking the prompt with the incident text and format instructions. Then we are invoking the LLM with the prompt value. So this is the method you can use LLM. Like if you have seen my previous video, initial video on LangChain, I used invoke directly on LLM instead of using chain here to get the LLM response. Now let's see, we are printing a raw output.content. Let's see the content of the LLM model written to us. So it's returning a severity, a service, and a cause as depicted by your prompt. Because we are asking for a severity, service, and cause in our prompt, it's returning us that only. Now after that, we are passing this instruction to a fixing parser.parse raw output.content. Now as you can see, even if model returns something like service high, service impacted, or things like that, output fixing parser will repair it automatically. So now as you see, the response written by the LLM is in the same format as we were needing according to our pedantic class, which is like severity, which is low, high, or medium, service, and then cause. So service is the impacted service name. So the LLM is returning the response in the correct manner. But let's assume the response written by the LLM is something like this: severity high. Instead of service, it's saying service impacted in the name and then root cause. So it's deviating a little bit from the response that we expect in our base parser. So here we are expecting a cause and the service. The parameters, the field names are a little bit different. So let's see, let's assume that response written by the LLM is this and not the actual one that it is being written by the LLM for this demo purpose. Now we are passing this wrong or the malformed response to the fixing parser as we have done it in the above example. Now the fixing parser, it will take this response, it will take the format of the response from the base parser, and the LLM that we have passed here in the while the creation of this parser, it will generate a prompt, it will pass the response as well as the format to this particular LLM, and it will try to fix that according to the initial format. So as you can see, after this step, when we print the response that is coming from this output fixing parser, you can see the response is in same format as expected. So we have severity, service, and the cause. Unlike the root cause and severity impacted and severity this was in the initial response. So output fixing parser is not a chaining process. Like you cannot chain it like we have seen in the other examples, right? That you could use chaining method here as well, right? Instead of calling the LLM directly, you could have used the chain and generate the response out of it, right? But in case if the response is wrong, if the format is wrong, you can use fixing parser as the post processing step to generate the proper response generate the proper response as expected by the base parser. For an end-to-end example, let's make a small change in this prompt. So instead of service, which is expected here, I'll just say service name, and whatever raw output that is being returned by the LLM, I'll pass that in the output fixing parser. So to avoid the confusion, let's not do this, and let's not do this, and let's remove this part as well, and let's remove this part. I think because of this base parser instructions, we are getting the exact format that we are trying. Let me remove that, and yeah, now you can see, right? So as I remove the base parser instructions from the prompt, the initial response that I am getting from the LLM is like very different that we are expecting, right? It's returning a markdown kind of format, like bold markdown format, bold, and then the severity, then service name, then the cause and everything. But it's not at all a JSON or in the format that we are expecting. So this is a markdown format. Now we are passing this raw output as it is in the fixing parser, which includes base parser as well as LLM, which could be same, which we are calling here, or it could be a different LLM with a different model, and which we can use for fixing purpose only. So now output fixing parser is taking charge, and it's trying to use this LLM to generate the response in the same format as needed by our base parser. So as you can see, after all the processing done by fixing parser, the output fixing parser, when you see the parsed result, it's in the exact same format, and a class type is incident report. So hence the output fixing parser is very helpful in such cases, and as you can see, it's a post processing step. Like it's not a chaining method, like you cannot chain it inside a chain. So for example, if you will do like the above examples, like creating a chain with the prompt, then LLM, then parentic output parser, this base parser, then if the LLM returns a improper response, this step will fail in the chain, right? And you will get an error. So after the LLM returns you the raw content, you can use this output fixing parser as a post processing step to get the proper response in case the response is not a proper format. So that is all for today's video. In the next video, we will cover retry output parser and retry with error output parser. They work in the same manner as output fixing parser, but internally the working is a bit different. So please like, share and subscribe, and see you in the next video. Thank you.